rage, stay in your lane, turn the page, but something woke up deep inside, a stronger voice, a wilder ride. I've paid my dues, I know my worth, I've fallen down, I've had rebirth. Now I'm standing in my truth, not chasing time, I'm choosing me. I've got wisdom in my bones, fire in my soul. This isn't the ending, this is the moment I take control. Life gets better after 40, clearer vision, brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder, unapologetic. I'm just getting started, don't you see? 40's forward, this is my time. The future's finally looking like me.
All right, everybody, welcome back. And you're going to be in for a treat today. We have Maureen Benkovich, and she is an alcohol freedom coach. She's a published author, a keynote speaker, and host a Sober Fit Life podcast, which is, you have to check it out. I just did her podcast recently. It was so much fun. She's the founder of Sober Fit Chick Coaching and helps high-achieving women and men who don't relate to rock bottom, but know alcohol is quietly costing them sleep, mood, energy, confidence, and momentum. So her coaching blends nervous system support, practical behavioral changes, and simple brain chemistry. She helps people understand why alcohol can feel like relief in the moment and then leave them more anxious, restless, and depleted later as the brain's rewards and calming systems rebound. Over time, those effects add up, and definitely a lot of things that, especially after the age of 40, impacting stress tolerance, recovery, focus, relationships, and long-term health. So Maureen's signature framework is the 4R method, and we'll get into that some more, but her message is simple. It's not your fault. It's chemistry, but you're not powerless to change the pattern. So welcome, Maureen. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Betsy, for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here.
So nobody when they're younger goes, I want to be a sober coach like when I grow up. So how did that transition happen?
That's a great question. Well, I've always been interested in health. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. I was a personal trainer when it first just hit the scene. I was even a figure competitor, very much into, taking care of myself. However, there was always this companion all the way through, which was alcohol. And it started like everybody else at a young age, in my case, at 14, actually, but just harmless kind of here and there, drinking. College, it took on a little more speed with binge drinking and fraternities and sororities. And then enter the corporate world. There's actually a lot of drinking there and a lot of pressure on women to sort of like drink like the guys and, show up for the meetings hungover, and it's a war story. And then it continued into my marriage. I met my husband in a bar, like many of my clients talk about. And so we drank together, and it becomes just woven through everything in life. However, at certain points, some people, and I was one of them, I started to sort of marry my drinking to some situations, and it becomes these neural pathways. I didn't know it back then, but associations, deep associations that are subconscious, and they become a habit. So one of those things was I was very depressed, actually, in my early marriage. We couldn't have children, and watching all my friends grow their families and have children, I really didn't know how to deal with it. Back then, there wasn't a lot of support. So I unknowingly increased my drinking and really made that strong tie, and sort of hid behind my drinking and really leaned into this party girl image, because I was kind of lost, not being a mom, not being able to have kids. All my friends are having it, and it wasn't something I had planned for. And so again, this is like 30s, and in my 40s, I would say I was really drinking a lot. You're still feeling kind of invincible then. And a lot of people in their 40s now have more disposable income, traveling. Alcohol gets really associated with travel, especially if you go to Europe, all that kind of stuff. The beliefs that it's sophisticated and this is what you do. So it was really entwined in everything. However, my mental health was really going downhill. And I started to think about it. I'm like, so after you drink like a whole weekend, you feel like terrible in the dumper until Wednesday or Thursday. I started to look up alcohol-induced depression, alcohol-induced anxiety. And sure enough, there are tons of connections. It's not widely talked about in our population, right? It's all about how great it is, and this is what we all do. But sure enough, that was what I was experiencing. And I realized my mental health was really suffering. But not only that, but as a personal trainer, I was now kind of skipping workouts, eating crap. After I drank at night, I'd eat pizza, really kind of betraying my values of who I was. And that is not a good feeling, to betray your values of who you really are innately. So all that together, I kept thinking, I've got to change this, but I don't know how. And alcohol is one of those only drugs that when you decide to make a change or stop, people say, why? Do you have a problem?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like if I were to say, hey guys, I stopped snorting cocaine, they'd be like, well, that's great because that's horrible for you, right? But alcohol, it's a completely different take that people have. And we'll talk about that. So sort of all those things held me back. Will I be fun? Who will I be without it? What will other people think? And I don't look like this person that we've all been conditioned to think should take a look at their drinking, right? Rock bottom, you've lost everything. You're in the gutter with a brown paper bag. So, and this is what keeps most people stuck. I was a gray area drinker, but I decided, this is what happens a lot when people who are drinking and are struggling with it. 2 a.m, we start Googling, am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem? And we're not telling anybody this, but when I was doing that, these things for coaching would pop up. And I'm like, coaching? That makes sense to me. I didn't fit the 12-step model. That's great for millions of people, but that just wasn't going to help me. It didn't resonate with me. And I thought, well, I'm a coach. I'm a trainer. That I would like to do that. So I went through a coaching program, and within 2 months, I was like, why do I want to put this stuff in my body anymore? It makes so much sense. Now I understand it's a drug. It's addictive. It's changing my brain chemistry. It is directly related to my mental health going downhill, my gut health, my skin. I was starting to have, red veins and lines showing up all around my nose. So all the things in my 40s, they weren't showing up, but they were happening. And by the time I hit my 50s, all of a sudden things were really falling apart. So that is how I became an alcohol freedom coach. I went through coaching myself, and I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to help other people understand the truth about alcohol so they can make a more informed decision about what they're putting in their body.
And that's such a needed niche of coaching, because even in the traditional medicine standpoint, we're just like, okay, it's not good for you. And then when we have some regulations on like, okay, no more than 1 drink a day. Now they're pushing it. Now they're saying, okay, maybe none at all, but there's not a big giant push. In fact, actually, I literally just got back from a medical conference, and I would say there were a number of times at the end of the day that the last lecturer would be like, hey, I'm going to try to get this through this fast because I know I'm the one person standing between you and happy hour.
Yep.
So there was a lot of like joking about like, okay, we got to get you guys to happy hour. We got to, you're at a conference, like let loose, enjoy yourself. And I'm like sitting here, especially after doing your podcast, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize even how much in the medical community, like alcohol is kind of like woven into the things that we do. And like, you go to drug rep dinners and there's alcohol, or there's always something going on. So I was like, look at that.
See, and just by talking, us having conversation, your level of awareness has been raised, and now you're seeing things that you didn't see. And that's what I help people do in coaching, because now doctors, they're saying, okay, Surgeon General says there's no safe or healthy recommended level of alcohol, so stop drinking. People don't know how to do that. And they're not ready to hear those words, stop drinking. So let's take a look at drinking less. And what does that look like? And so that it's a less threatening kind of thing. And also it helps people start to realize, well, what are all the jobs I've unknowingly given alcohol over the years? Stress relief, anxiety when I walk into a party, how to network, how to be alone, how to be bored, how to celebrate, how to go on vacation, right? And there's all these deep associations. So bringing those to the surface and taking a look at the limiting beliefs, like I can't possibly go on vacation without drinking. I mean, that's what everybody says, right? I said it for years and it held me back. And the big one, What will people think?
Mm-hmm.
That is huge. I have clients who are 78 years old who are afraid of that. Peer pressure.
I found myself falling into that, and I'm like, and like logically, I go, this is silly. But at the same time, especially when I was at this conference, I was acutely aware of at dinner or at night, like what was in my glass because I didn't want to look like a non-drinker. And I'm going, this is so silly. Why am I doing this? But like I was purposely, well, because I also thought about it, and we talked about this on your podcast, that since I started wearing the Whoop band, so a lot of these health trackers,
Yes.
I was able to see how the alcohol, even just one glass of wine, how much it affected my health, like my heart rate variability, all the measures of health would like take this dive. And I started going, forget about the fact of, being hungover, like even just with one glass, I was like, just one glass is doing that much to my health. So I'm like, it's not worth it. So why would I even do it? So, I'm at these dinners and I'm thinking, I'm struggling with that. Well, one glass of wine is not going to kill me. But then I was like, oh, I was speaking at this conference and I'm like, oh, you know what? I know I need to be like, I need to sleep. And I know when I travel at conferences, I tend to get sick. And so is that one glass of wine really going to be worth it if it's adding to affecting my immunity and blah, blah, blah. So I ended up, like I said, I couldn't just order a soda because I was like, I didn't want to look like I wasn't drinking. So one of my friends actually a while ago told me she always orders like club seltzer and bitters because one of the things we don't get enough in our diet is bitters. Right. And then it kind of makes you feel like you're drinking and not drinking. But then I'm like, at the same time, like, why do I even have to pretend that I'm drinking?
And that's one of the things we work on in coaching. But at first it's like, okay, if you don't want to tell the world, you don't have to. So let's take a look at know what you're going to say, know what you're going to order, right? And know when you're going to leave an event, for example. So if you're trying to change your relationship with alcohol and it's new for you and you've always drank at these things, you need to know that. So we work on those kind of plans. But so you're sort of in the recognize and awareness phase. You're like, okay, this is interesting. I'm having these thoughts like, I don't want to look like a non-drinker. Why do I care? The next move is to replace. When one of the things you did is you came up with a drink that looks like an adult beverage. And now you felt better, right? It was like, okay, nobody even knows what's in your glass. But then the harder replacements are less about alcohol replacements. And they're like, how do I replace when I feel really tired? How do I replace when I can't sleep? Because a lot of people use alcohol to sleep, unknowingly knowing that it actually totally screws up their sleep architecture. Yeah, you get sedated at first, but that's not sleep. Right. So how do you learn how to do that without alcohol? How do you learn if you have social anxiety to walk into a party and not drink alcohol? Right. And how do you learn to go on vacation where it's completely served and promoted and you actually get questioned if you're not drinking? How do you do that? So learning how to replace is a practice. And I help people learn all kinds of ways to do that through movement, breath work, lifestyle, nutrition, thought work. We got to think about our thinking. We can direct our neuroplasticity, instead of like, you need a drink right now. Wait, is that true? Do I need a drink? What do I really need? Maybe actually I didn't eat all day. I actually need protein, right? So getting people to pause and think about what do you really need right now helps them replace.
What makes me laugh every year is dry January because I see so many people, which I'm great. Like, yeah, you're getting rid of it for January, but I see so many people that do dry January. They lose weight, they feel great, and the moment February hits, they go back to it.
Of course, because they did not replace, right? All they did was use willpower and say like, okay, for 30 days, I'm going to prove to myself that I don't have a problem and I can take a break with everybody else and it's okay because everybody else is doing it, right? But then day 31, and I did this for years, I go right back to drinking and your drinking ramps right back up to where it was very fast. And it's because of the brain chemistry. And that's why understanding it is so huge. So when we drink alcohol, we get a massive hit of dopamine, right? Yeah. And we also get this false calm and it affects our GABA. So the brain, as you know, talking to the doctor who knows all this, but your brain is always trying to establish homeostasis. So it's like, okay, Dr. Betsy's having a glass of wine every night. And we're getting this massive hit of dopamine. We have to dial back our own production and our own receptors for dopamine. So when someone takes a break, it doesn't feel good right away. because
Yeah.
you have a lower baseline of your own neurotransmitters. It takes a while for your brain almost to be like, let's see if she's going to keep introducing this stuff or should we kick back up production?
Wow. How long do you coach people that process can take to go back?
And that's always the question people ask. How long is this going to take? It depends. How much have they been drinking? How long have they been drinking? What are all the associations they have made around drinking? Mm-hmm. So we have to uncover a lot of cognitive dissonance. I don't want to drink anymore because it's no longer serving me. I see it on my Garmin watch, but yet I still want to drink, right? So we have to uncover all that cognitive dissonance and sort of break it apart and ask those questions. Well, is that true that you can't go to a networking event and not drink? Well, it's not true, but it doesn't feel good right now. I still don't want to do it. All right. Well, what could you do? Well, I can go in and I can get the club soda with the bitters, and I can make sure I eat when I'm there, and I can make sure I leave when it starts to get really uncomfortable and everybody's starting to go downhill and I'm feeling FOMO. Because once you have one of those successful events, your brain, that's a real dopamine hit. Your brain goes, oh, I did that. That was good. I can do hard things. And you start building that new alcohol-free neural pathway. So it takes like step by step. It's a lot of consistency and practice in all the different situations that alcohol has been in your life.
I don't know where in my practice this happened, but years ago, I think AARP printed an article about resveratrol being super healthy and anti-aging. And it was like literally overnight, people were drinking and they're like, I have my glass of wine at night, or my 2 glasses of wine at night, or whatever. And some of them were like, I have a bottle of wine a night.
Right.
I'm being healthy. So how do you answer that?
Yeah. Well, you bring up such a huge point. We are inundated with marketing messages, and these messages are capitalized on by companies that bring in psychiatrists, psychoanalysts. How do we make this more appealing? Resveratrol. Oh, wine is healthy because in the blue regions, they drink wine and they're healthy and living longer. So they twist these studies. They don't leave out that you'd actually have to drink, I don't even know how much wine to get, the amount of resveratrol that would make a difference versus taking a supplement. Right? Yeah. But people are like, I'm getting my resveratrol because it makes you feel better about doing this thing. And it's the whole tribal mentality too. Everybody jumps on board a study, and they don't read all the details. They just hear resveratrol is good for you and resveratrol is in wine. Oh, but you have to drink 100 glasses a day to actually get the dose that would really make a difference.
And then I always get the like, oh, we know it's bad for you, but my great aunt lived to be 102 and she drank, a highball every single day of her life. So she must have been doing something right.
Right. Of course, you're going to have those outliers. My father was one of those people. But he would have one drink and he didn't have all these deep associations. For instance, I was not allowing myself to grieve this loss that I was feeling for years. And alcohol was the thing that I was using to downregulate my central nervous system. I never took a look at what other things could I do that would actually support me. So there are on the spectrum of gray area drinking. And let me just back up and tell you, gray area drinkers look like this. They're healthy. They care about their health. They're moms, they're doctors, they're entrepreneurs, they're business people, right? They are successful. And yet they know, so this is the key, they know they're drinking too much. I don't go out to the world and coach, right? I coach the people who are waking up at 3 a.m. like, I did it again. I drank a bottle of wine. I said I was going to have one. What is wrong with me? And they have this secret shame. They take breaks like I did. And then they kind of prove to themselves in their mind, oh, okay, I'm good. I can go back to drinking. And then they're frustrated because they're right back where they were. That's a classic gray area drinker. Now, there are also people called unicorns. That's what I call them. Moderation unicorns. They have never built all the associations around alcohol. Alcohol is truly no big deal. They could literally take it or leave it. So that's why when people call me and they're like, Maureen, I want you to show me how to moderate. Like, here's the thing about moderators. They don't make all those rules around alcohol. They don't think about their drinking all the time. They truly can take it or leave it. And so it's very hard once you've reached a certain level of drinking. I'm not saying it's impossible, but to go back to that because of your brain chemistry. It has nothing to do with willpower or moral failing. You just don't want it bad enough. It's brain chemistry. And that's why my signature talk is it's not your fault. It's chemistry. So understanding that takes away the personalization of like, what's wrong with me? And instead it's like, oh, okay, the brain is acting how it's supposed to in the presence of a drug.
Mm. Yeah. And I guess that's why you can have so many different levels. You have the person who's like an alcoholic versus the person who it's no big deal. And then there's everybody in between.
Yeah. And there's an interesting book called The Biology of Desire. And it talks about exactly what I just said, how the brain has to work in the presence of a drug to achieve homeostasis, because your brain's always trying to protect itself. It's an amazing ecosystem, as you know. Alcohol is one of those drugs that crosses the blood-brain barrier, right? It touches every cell in your body. So it goes right in there. And it's an equal opportunity offender. It offends all your neurotransmitters. When you're on a antidepressant like a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, that affects serotonin. Alcohol affects all your neurotransmitters. So it's called a global or a dirty drug. And so like learning all that stuff about this substance that has been legalized, glorified, romanticized, helps change your perspective and helps you to think, wait a minute, what do I really need right now? Sure, alcohol is going to be a central nervous system depressant. I am going to feel better for about 20 minutes. But then what happens inside the body, the whole chemical cascade, the next day you're going to pay for it. And as you get older, past your 40s, you don't metabolize it as well. Your sleep is changing, your hormones are changing, all the things you talk about. And alcohol multiplies and speeds up all of those things, including aging, including your skin, all of that.
Yeah, it's amazing because like things that people used to get away with when they were younger, all of a sudden it's like you wake up in your 40s and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not responding to it the way I used to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, as a personal trainer, people would say, like, I don't get it. I could like cut back on what I ate for a few days and like really work out really hard and I drop a few pounds. Well, yeah, you were 18, right? Yeah. That's not going to happen when you're 40. Your hormones, you talk about it all the time, how that changes everything. And it changes how you respond to alcohol.
It was funny. And I should actually get my friend on my podcast too, but you just interviewed a friend of mine. So you guys have to listen to her podcast too, who she's a trainer. And she just posted some pictures, which I was like, wow. Cause I knew how hard she was working out and I know how well she eats, but she had these before and after pictures and she's in her late 40s of her exercise and eating right on alcohol versus exercising, eating right off of alcohol. And the body images were completely different.
Yeah.
It was really, I was really surprised at that difference.
In my early 40s, I did 2 figure competitions. And when I look back now on the other side of alcohol, I realized I did them because it gave me this excuse with all my friends to not drink. So for 6 and 8 months at a time, I didn't drink. And I got up on stage, and I did these competitions, but I didn't do all the inner work. But my body totally changed because alcohol interferes with muscle protein synthesis. So the process that you're doing to break down your muscle and then it builds back up, alcohol interferes with that. So this applies to the competitor and also the regular person who's going to the gym all the time. You're doing all this hard work and you're making it a lot harder to get those gains and those accomplishments. And that's what Lainey saw. She saw the difference and it's just undeniable when you look at her pictures. And she said so many great things in that podcast. So I hope everybody will listen to it. Maybe we could put a link in your episode too. But she said, you got to find your tribe. You got to find your people, that aren't focusing everything around alcohol. And that was one of the big things that helped her. And she found her tribe at the gym.
That's so interesting that you said that about muscle, because that's something I actually did not realize. And one of the problems that we start seeing after the age of 40 is, and actually even starting in our 30s, is we lose about 8% of muscle per decade. So almost about 1% a year if we're not exercising. Then in your 40s, both men and women are seeing a drop in testosterone, which also supports muscle. So now we have these natural things that are starting to happen in our 40s and beyond. And then you throw alcohol into the mix.
Yeah.
And
alcohol is the multiplier. We're already fighting against like aging and gravity. And like you said, losing testosterone, losing muscle. And if we're not actively replacing muscle by lifting, by eating protein, right, taking care of ourselves, then we're going to continue to lose it. And as we get older, we all just say, well, that's kind of aging. But no, that's not true. If you really make healthy choices, remove this big offender of alcohol. What's the root of all disease? Inflammation. What does alcohol do? Completely inflammatory, right? And also it multiplies all these things that you talk about, including here you are at the gym, working out hard, and you're affecting your muscle protein synthesis. So you're not going to get the gains or the losses that you're looking for.
And then I'm thinking about all the people that are on GLP-1s right now, which is really super popular because one of the side effects of those meds is you lose muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking too, if they're doing those meds and they're drinking, what are we doing to their body compositions?
Exactly. And that's actually a big problem with women, especially. They're like, I'd rather drink my calories than eat. And now throw in they're doing GLP-1s and they're mostly drinking their alcohol calories and they don't have much of an appetite because it's being suppressed by the GLP-1s. Yeah, there's going to be lots of studies coming out. We're going to see the evidence.
And this is something that I do a lot is like the gut microbiome. And we know that alcohol throws off the gut microbiome, and the gut microbiome leads to systemic inflammation. It's going to affect our hormones. It's going to affect libido. But I have a family member that I'm actually balancing their gut microbiome right now because their hormones are off. But I can't get them to get rid of the alcohol. I'm like, you're doing all these amazing things for your gut microbiome, but you're just sabotaging it with the alcohol.
So they have to buy into that. They have to understand, it's not enough to say it's bad for you. Don't do it. It's affecting your gut. Really have to see why and make the connections. And it's a lot of unwinding of deep conditioning that we have had for years, familial things we've grown up with. This is what we do. This is how we celebrate. It's very hard to unwind it. So it's a process. So when people work with me, I'll say, well, look, how many years have you been drinking? Most people are like decades, right? And I have an introductory 6-week course. It is an introductory course. It's about learning all these things we're kind of talking about here and how to start changing your relationship with alcohol. But if you really want to change and no longer drink, there's a lot of people that come to me that don't. It's going to take longer than that. But you can start with that course to understand what's really going on when you drink.
What are some good examples? I'm sure there's tons of them, but what are some examples of things that people can replace?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what you're saying. It's like we've made these connections. So it's not just like, okay, just stop drinking.
Right.
We got to it's the same kind of thing we see with smoking, like people smoke when they're bored. They smoke when they're socializing. I mean, not as much because you can't smoke, at least in New Jersey, you can't smoke indoors anywhere, but it's almost the same thing. So, what are the things that people can replace with?
And they're really basic things, but people don't recognize the connection and they're not thinking about it. So protein, number one, stabilize your blood sugar. A lot of times we crave alcohol because blood sugar is not stable. So I talk to them about their diet. Are you getting 30 grams of protein 3 times a day, minimally, right? And that's just a real generalization. It depends on their weight and all that stuff. And also, like I said, when you stop drinking, you are not immediately going to feel better. There is this recalibration period, but we can help it along. We can improve it. So sleep hygiene, that's a whole nother area of study now, right? And wearing the wearable tech can help you have real-time information. But are you getting in bed and scrolling at night, having blue lights, right? Are you staying up really late? Are you eating at 9 o'clock? So we want to talk about all that. And then what does your morning look like? Trying to get up at the same time, circadian rhythms, early morning sunlight exposure without sunglasses, right? All these things, if you start, and it takes a while, right? So I don't throw all this stuff at everybody at once. It's like, let's take a look at this piece and this piece. But if we start improving their sleep architecture, that helps a lot. And also understanding cravings. You are going to have cravings. And again, it has nothing to do with like you're weak or you're bad. These are conditioned responses. It's chemistry. And so when you see a craving or feel a craving, learning how to lean into that discomfort, because we've spent so many years, okay, this feels uncomfortable. I better open a bottle and drink, whatever the discomfort is. Leaning into that discomfort and learning how to be curious and ask that question, what do I really need right now? Is it protein? It might just be hydration. I actually haven't had water all day, right? I need to get outside and get some sunlight. I need to call Betsy. I need some connection. Boredom. We're so afraid of boredom and it's an emotion. And yet on the other side of boredom, so many things can happen. So start writing your thoughts, even if it's bullet points, I tell people. So these are all creating and strengthening your new neural pathway. And I guess I should say the thing we know for sure, and all these books like 7 Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits, change cannot happen through shame and beating yourself up and negative emotion. It can only happen through positive emotion change. So when you have a big win, you go to a networking event and you're like, I had club soda and bitters, you know, and I left at 10 o'clock. And the next morning I got up and I worked out and I felt great while everybody else was hungover the next day. You want to recognize that. You want to celebrate that win. And I'm not saying that to be like positive cheerleader. It's because it locks in the new neural pathway. You get that dopamine hit. Oh, that felt good. And then you have confidence to do it again. So all these little kind of tricks help move along how much faster you're going to start feeling better. If you try to just willpower it, white knuckle it through, you're not going to change anything.
You know, I think the other problem is, how do you deal with the fact that like alcohol is everywhere? You can't go to a sporting event. I mean, like I went to the movies and I was like, I didn't even know that they served alcohol at the movies, but apparently they do. Like, you know, restaurants, movies, you know, social events. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, what's behind every drug? What is the reason for any drug, legal or illegal? Money, right?
Yeah.
So people realize, hey, we should have alcohol at movies. You know what? We're missing an entire market of women. Let's start marketing to women and have all the little napkins and the little memes and mommy's little helper and all this kind of stuff.
And the
Sex
skinny
in the City,
alcohol.
Cosmo, skinny alcohol, all that. That is all intentional, right? And it is everywhere. I just had a client recently going, I'm going to my high school daughter's like night school fair. She's like, there probably won't be alcohol. I said, let's just do this. Always assume there's going to be alcohol everywhere. Because there is. So then you won't be surprised. And now we're going to work through a strategy of what that looks like for you. Do you eat before you go to the event? Yes. Know what you're going to order. Know what you're going to say if someone asks you. Know when you're going to leave, right? So alcohol is everywhere. So how do you learn to navigate that world? It takes practice and it takes you getting these wins that eventually, you know, I used to say all the things my clients say, how could I possibly go to Europe? I've been to Italy twice and lucky that I have without drinking. And you know what? I got up early morning in Venice and I ran through the streets before all the little shops were open. And I had an espresso early and it was like such a different experience versus being hungover and like going to museums and I couldn't wait to have another drink, right? It's just, you have to go through the discomfort to recognize what things feel like and look like without alcohol on the other side.
How do you feel about all the non-alcoholic options that are coming out? Because I actually was at the supermarket the other day and I went to go pick up. So there's actually this one non-alcoholic beer that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And I went to go buy it and it was actually sold out. But I didn't realize there's now like two shelves worth of non-alcoholic things. I was like, I didn't even know all these existed. So
yeah, see, because the alcohol industry is responding. It's dropping. People more sober, curious people are out there. People are asking for this. It's all about money. So they're going to come up with to meet the demand. So at first, everything in the restaurants and on the shelves was very sugary and not really that good. But now it's starting to get better. And instead of saying mocktails, it's really, there's a whole category called functional drinks.
Yes.
These have properties that actually, you know, calm you, relax you, maybe give you energy like ashwagandha, L-theanine, all these kind of products that, you know, you can try. It's a good tool to have, especially in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with having and ordering and trying those things. Absolutely. What I tell people is if you get a 6-pack of alcohol-free beer and there's like 0.5% alcohol and you drink 6-pack, then we want to talk about intent. Like, what are you trying to do there? But usually when you have an alcohol-free drink, you'll drink 1 or 2. But when I first started and I went to dinner with all my friends that were drinking, yeah, I absolutely ordered mocktails, you know, and I had like 5 cappuccinos and, you know, like 8 glasses in front of me because I'm just trying to relearn how to do this without alcohol. So it's a good tool.
Yeah. I have to say, though, I have to warn people with those non-alcoholic menus. I was recently in California and I went out with the intention of like, oh, let me see. And they had this whole non-alcoholic, but it was all kava drinks. And I knew about kava, but I didn't really know about kava. And let me tell you, I had one of those drinks and wish I hadn't because I felt worse on that than I did on alcohol. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there were some psychoactive properties of the kava. And I'm like, oh, this is fun.
So just like what you said about resveratrol, everybody's jumped on the kava train.
Yeah.
And it's sourced from different areas. Again, you have to be really careful about when you're drinking that, how many you have. Do you have liver problems? Are you taking Tylenol? You be curious about when you try these things, what you're looking to get out of it. Yeah, but some of them are really strong.
Yeah, I wish they had like literally like like I don't know what you would call it, but they need like that restaurant needed a whole nother menu or at least some sort of disclaimer.
Yeah, with kava. Yes.
Yeah, because I was like, whoa, because I'm sitting there and at first I was like thinking there was something wrong with me. I was like, why do I feel so funny? And then I'm like, oh wait a minute, I have kava in my drink. So
I took that with me on a cruise, these little packets called You Relax. There is one much more milder form, and it's a sourced form that I trusted. But I went on a cruise and I asked her to make me a faux Cosmo with this. Well, they came back. Now I'm almost 5 years of alcohol free. And this was just a couple months ago. And I took a sip. My husband's ordering his meal and I'm like, that tastes funny. I took another sip and I felt it go to my head. I'm like, this is alcohol. Right. And she came back. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. I got it mixed up. And it was interesting, all the thoughts that went through my head. So I had to employ all the tools that I've always learned for this new situation because I was like, I could drink it. Right. Old thoughts came back. Those old neural pathways, they don't go away. They're just kind of asleep. So that's sort of like woke it back up. And I'm like, why would I want to do that? How would I feel tomorrow? All the tricks I say to people, I quickly, like within seconds, it's like, I don't want this. But so you learn how to use these tools and you employ them for all your life because alcohol is everywhere.
Yeah. In wrapping up here, is there anything I didn't ask you that you think is really important for us to know?
I think it's really important for people not to get stuck in this shame cycle and hiding this and not seeking some sort of support because they don't fit the stereotype of what we've been conditioned to believe. Rock bottom is the only person who should look at changing. Be curious. Be curious. I have a quiz that you can take called Am I Drinking Too Much? You can take it. It has real world questions and answers. I kind of made some of them funny too. What I wished would have been out there when I was looking. And then you can get a guide to, well, what is gray area drinking and where do I fit in that spectrum? And it also has 3 science-backed strategies of how to stop cravings if you are a person who's trying to change your drinking. So I just want people to be curious instead of hiding it. It is a drug. It's just legal. And so just know that if you want to change your relationship with alcohol, that's good enough. You don't have to have any other reasons.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Where can people find out more information about you?
So soberfitchick.com is my website. Soberfitchick LLC is my Instagram. I'm also over on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. And for your people, I do have a special offer for my 6-week alcohol reset. I'll run another one for Sober October. Right now there's a wait list, but for your people, if they put in the code when enrollment opens, you can get on the wait list now, but when enrollment opens forward 100, they'll get $100 off. But then you can go through my 6-week course, and it's a digital course and those live coaching calls with a group of about 10 people. And so you're not alone, you get interaction, and you get to learn a lot about the truth about alcohol while you're taking a coach-led break. So forward 100, you get $100 off. So check it out. It's on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is so generous. So everybody, make sure you go check out all those links. Make sure you give Maureen a follow, listen to her podcast, especially my episode.
Yeah.
And don't forget to come back here for some more 40s Forward.
Thank you, Dr. Betsy. It was a pleasure being here.
Life gets better after 40, clearer vision, brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder, unapologetic. I'm just getting started, don't you see? 40s forward, this is my time. The future's finally looking like me. We got wisdom, we got fire, we got nothing left to prove. This is power, this is freedom, this is living fully you. Life this is where I rise and shine. 40s forward, full of purpose. I'm stepping into my